Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari and Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Text 16. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 6th day of December 2022 in San Diego. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And everyone have a book? We are in chapter 9, text number 16. I have the odd book that has the different pages, so someone tell me what page it's on. Do you have it there, Arjun? Text 16, chapter 9? 397. 397. Yes. Yeah, we have a few of these strange books with different margins. Okay, one word about the heat, or lack thereof. Vijay Prabhu lives upstairs, and anyone who's been here and we turn the heat on, it makes quite a noise. And he takes rest at like 7 p.m. He's resting now. Get up again 1 in the morning, chanting his rounds and doing what he does. So therefore, he turned the heat on earlier. It could have been colder in here, but what we have is the heat we're going to have. So I guess everyone's nicely dressed. No problem. We're good. Everyone's good? Okay. Not too bad. All right. So we'll begin. Text 16, chapter 9. Aham kratur aham yagyaha swadaham aham aushadham mantroham ahamevajyam aham agnir aham hutam aham katuraham yagya swadaham aham aushadam mantroham ahamevajyam aham agniraham hutam aham katuraham yagya swadaham aham aushadam mantroham ahamevajyam aham agniraham hutam aham katuraham yagya swadaham aham aushadam mantroham evajyam aham agniraham hutam. Go ahead. No? Okay. Go ahead.
Aham kratur aham yagyana.
Aham katuraham yagya.
Swadham aham aushadham.
Swadaham aham aushadam.
Mantroham aham evajyam.
Mantroham aham evajyam.
Aham agnir aham hutam.
Aham agniraham hutam. Dharmaraj. Aham katuraham yagya. Swadaham aham aushadam. Mantroham aham evajyam. Aham agniraham hutam. You want to try? Aham kratur aham yagya. Swadaham aham aushadam. Toham aham evajyam. Aham agniraham hutam. Prabhu, you want to try? Vrindavan? Aham kratur aham yagya. Swadaham aham aushadam. Mantroham aham evajyam. Aham agniraham hutam. Ladies. Aham kraturaham yagya. Swadaham aham aushadam. Mantroham aham evajyam. Aham agniraham hutam. Okay, I'll read the word by words. Aham, I. Kratu, Vedic ritual. Aham, I. Yagya, smriti sacrifice. Swadha, oblation. Aham, I. Aham, I. Aushadam, healing herb. Mantraha, transcendental chant. Aham, I. Aham, I. Eva, certainly. Ajyam, melted butter. Aham, I. Agnihi, fire. Aham, I. Hutam, offering. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, but it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. Purport. The Vedic sacrifice, known as Jyotishtoma, is also Krishna, and he is also the Mahayagya mentioned in the Smriti. The oblations offered to the Pitraloka, or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitraloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna, and many other commodities made with milk products for offering in the sacrifice are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna because fire is one of the 5 material elements and is therefore claimed as the separated energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the Karmakanda division of the Vedas are in total also Krishna. Or in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So what Krishna is doing here, we always look at the context, going back to, say, text 10, which was a critical verse. Maya dakshena prakati suyate sacharacharam. Krishna is saying here that everything is moving. This whole nature that we see, material nature, is called prakriti. It's working under my supervision. Nothing is happening automatically. All these incredibly complex workings that happen just in our own body, what to speak of the whole nature, are guided by a supreme intelligence, and that supreme intelligence is Krishna. So Prakriti is creating everything, manifesting everything, working under my supervision. And because of that, Hitananina, O Kunti, son of Kunti, Jagad Viparivartate. This word Jagad Viparivartate means the universe is rolling along and going and working in its incredible complexity. So he states like that, but then he says in the next verse, Avadananti mam mudha. Mudha means fools who understand something about my activities. They know that I was born and so and so. They don't take me seriously. They can't imagine that a person, such as myself in a human form, is actually possessed of the intelligence and the consciousness to run everything like that. So they deride me. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. So then he says, what's the fate of these people who doubt the divinity of Krishna? Very long purport here, Prabhupada. Means that there's a long commentary on it. Moga asha moga karmana. The word moga means bewildered, frustrated. Asha is your hopes. People live in the hopes that I'll be successful, I'll have happiness, and so many dangers won't attack me. There's a lot of hope out there, you know. But he says that all their hopes are baffled, bewildered, because ultimately the material energy, if you just contemplate it in a minute, there's really no hope for lasting happiness and safety and so forth, because time pushes everything forward. I was just thinking of this fact recently. Most of you are aware of the fraught geopolitical situation, the war in Ukraine and all of these things going on, plus the pandemic, climate change. You know, it's pretty depressing, materially. So, just on the war front, I was aware and awake. I don't think any of you are old enough. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, which happened in 1962, quite a ways back, and suddenly, everybody in the world, not just in the United States or Cuba, was aware that we're on a little tipping point here. The nuclear bombs are about to fly. I don't know, did you ever know the details of the Cuban Missile Crisis? And for like 2 weeks, it's just like, everyone was, are we going to make it? Is it really going to work? You know, I mean, I won't go into the detail, but it got more and more and more dangerous, and it happened in just exactly this time, actually a few months ago, in late October of '62. And of course, it didn't happen. chiefly because two people in the world who happened to lead the two main countries, Russia and the United States, had both seen, this is my understanding of one of the main factors, they'd seen the horrors of World War II. They were right in the middle of it. You know, Kennedy was a Navy guy. He saved a friend. He famously was on a PT boat and everything, right in the middle. He was in the middle of the war. And you know, Khrushchev was on the other side. He, of course, seen it from the Russian side, which is even more horrible. So they were very much concerned. They really, really didn't want the war to happen, you know. And they were in direct communication with each other, and they defused it, and we survived all these years, you know. But now, who's running the world? I mean, geopolitically. Krishna's running it, we know that. There's nobody who's been through World War II. There's two, they're all aged out, you know, they're dying off. So we are in such a fraught position. You know, there's that, and then there's climate change, which is also moving along. You know, they really aren't doing anything about it. The CO2 is keeping going, increasing year after year. We're right here in the middle of a very, you know, 10,000 year drought, right where we're sitting. San Diego, they planned for it because they're already on a desert. So they have all of these features of water conservation and things, so we're not in as bad shape as in some other parts of this very state, what to speak. So what I'm getting at is that just on a practical level, you can see that material life, and even on a personal level, you know, riding on I-5, everyone goes 75, 80, even I get up there, you know, in 5. Right? It's a fraught situation. It's dangerous. Danger at every step. There's a wonderful verse in the Bhagavatam describing that. Samashita ye palapallavaplavam mahatpadam punya yasho marari bhavambudi vatsapadam parampadam padam yadvipadam natesham. Some of you may be familiar with this verse. So what it's saying there, this is, I think this is Shukadev speaking to Pariksit after the prayers of Lord Brahma. Samashrita means full shelter. One who takes full shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Krishna. Now what is it, that you may have heard that before, most of you. What is the significance of the lotus feet? It means recognizing oneself as a servant. When you approach someone's lotus feet, it means I surrender to you, you know, like that. So Samashrita, they're like a boat. The service to Krishna, symbolized by his feet. Samashrita padapallavaplavam mahatpadam. On those lotus feet, this mahatpadam has two meanings. One is the place where the Mahatattva rests, the whole universe is resting on Krishna. And another is all the Mahatmas, the great souls, take shelter of those lotus feet. Punya Yasho Murari. Murari is another name for Krishna. He was the enemy of a demon named Mura. He killed many, many years earlier. And so he's known as Murari. And Punya Yasha means just by glorifying him, his fame brings piety. Just to hear about Krishna or to chant about Krishna, just like when we chant Hare Krishna or in Kirtan, you're hearing about Krishna, his holy name, and you're chanting. And you automatically become more pious. Sinful activities become more and more distasteful to you, even if you just, you know, used to perform all kinds of activities. So that's Punya Shamari. So what happens to this vast, dangerous ocean of birth and death that we're occupying? Bhavambudir, called the Bhavambudir. Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. Ambudir means ocean, and Bhava means constantly changing, right? Constant change, which means birth, old age, disease, and death. Birth, old age, disease, and death. We never die. Nobody dies as a soul. We've had millions of births before, and we'll have a future birth, hopefully one, and back to Godhead. But nobody dies. But we keep changing bodies, and it's as if we're dying, and we go through that death. So he said, it all shrinks down to the quantity of water in a calf's hoofprint. Not even a cow's hoofprint. Cow's a little bigger, so you have to step. But calves, I mean, you don't even need a boat anymore. In other words, you take shelter of that lotus feet, and you've already crossed over the ocean. Vatsapadam, the calf's hoofprint. Padam, param padam, because you've already gone to the supreme abode. Even in this, if you're staying even in this world where your consciousness is, if you're constantly thinking of Krishna, serving Krishna, you're linked up to the supreme absolute truth that way, then is as if you were in the spiritual world. Even all the dangers and the horrors of this world, they can't disturb you. Because, okay, so what if I die? I'm not going to die. The body goes, I'll go back to Godhead. if you're actually on that platform. As Prabhupada was asked once, what is the benefit, or what is your experience of being fully Krishna conscious? Something like that. He says, he had 2 words: no fear. There's no fear. Imagine it, having no fear, being constantly secure in position spiritually. So it is parampadam, padampadam yad vipadam natesham. Not for them, those who have taken full shelter of Krishna and fully Krishna conscious, not for them is this place where there is danger at every step. Danger at every step. So that's the world we live in. And here Krishna is saying that those who deride me, they don't accept my divinity, even in the human form, then all their hopes are frustrated, bewildered. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, their culture of knowledge are all defeated. In other words, you live a fruitless life. Just like in one verse, I think it's in the second chapter, no, it's I think in the 3rd chapter. Agayur indriyaramo mogam partasa jivati. This word moga, which appears in this mogasha moga karmana, frustrated. Agayur means a life of sin dedicated to pleasing the senses. Agayur indriyaramo mogam partasa jivati. One lives fruitlessly. Which brings us to a very important point that keeps coming up, and that is the great value of the human form of life. When we begin to read the literature, we recognize we have a kinship with every living being, not just human beings in the universe. Meaning that we're all spirit souls. In that sense, we're equal. You see, but what's the difference? The difference is the consciousness, and by the consciousness, you get a certain body. So you have dogs and cats running out there, insects, all these. They're also living beings, and we may have been in such a situation at one point. Probably were, coming up through the species. So the birds don't die, the cats don't die, none of us dies. We just change. That's bhavanava, changing our external situation, till we come to the human form of life. Now what's the special factor in the human form of life? The higher intelligence. The ability to reason, to understand the implications of our activities, and to control the urges to do certain things that we know from experience of ourselves or others are bad for us, are going to damage us. So here, then the animals don't have that. They're running by instinct. You can't ask a dog to sit down and please sit in the corner, listen to Bhagavad Gita class. Although there's some amazing stories about animals who but that's very rare. But so the human form of life is this very rare situation. I'm going to share 2 very important verses that some of you may be familiar with. One is one that Prabhupada would always quote. The other he would quote almost as often. Labdva sudurlamabidam bahusam bhavante. Manushyam artadam anityam apiya dhira. Tunam yateta napatena namityavad niksheya saya vishaya kalu sarvataksyan. This is a call to every human being. It says, you have attained, after a long time, and coming up through the species, the human form of life. Sudurlabham. Labdva sudurlabham means very rare, difficult to attain. Bahusam bhavante manusham. You can hear the relate. Manusham means man, a human being. Artadam. Artadam means this alone form of life can give the ultimate value of life. In other words, there's a meaning to it and a goal to it. Arta means something valuable. And this is like the goal of the soul. Because oftentimes our sense of what's valuable is skewed by our being embodied. So what's valuable? That which can make my body comfortable, I can be pleased and all this. Body and mind. You're not the mind either. You're beyond the mind. So artadam, but like all, anityam, it's not permanent, it's temporary. Time is ticking. So therefore one has to be dhira. Dhira means you have to consider what is really valuable to do. What shall I invest my valuable time in, and my intellectual and physical and all energies that I have? What goal should I strive for? That's what means dhira. And dhira means I should strive for that goal, which is, simply put, minimize my suffering down to nil and maximize my happiness, my pleasure up to unlimited. Ananda. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. That's where our Sat means eternal life. No more changing bodies. We're in a spiritual body. And being Ananda because we're related to the source of all Ananda, Krishna. He is Anandamaya Vyasat. This is a sutra. Anandamaya simply means full of bliss, always. Are we full of bliss always? No, not really, right? So we want to be full of bliss always. And it sounds like that's a pipe dream. Life means, you got to suffer a little and there's some happiness. It's a mixture. Yeah, material life. But we're striving for spiritual life beyond the limitations of the body. So in this verse he's saying, one has to be dear, and if you really consider and you get the right instruction, then the next instruction is Turnam yateta. Don't waste any time. Turna means immediately strive under proper direction and going in the right direction. Turnam yateta napateta anumritya yavat. As long as your body hasn't fallen down and died. Now this word anumritya, I think could mean because death is always following you. It's on your shoulder. You don't recognize, but you could go at any moment. So we have to use every second. That's what turnam yateta means. So what to strive for? Anumritya yavat nikshayasaya. The ultimate good. Shreya means good, and nikshaya means ultimate good that we can strive for, which is simple. Prabhupada summarized it, going back home, back to Godhead. To regain our actual nature as eternal living beings, full of knowledge and full of bliss, in relationship to Krishna, in relationship to God. We're part and parcel of Krishna. When we regain our original swarup, we have a certain rasa, a certain relationship with Krishna, which is full of bliss. It's one of service and loving and being loved. He's experiencing the wonderful qualities of Krishna in association with all other devotees there. So this is nikshayasa. After all, vishya kalasarvataksyat. Vishya, we've experienced all varieties of sense pleasure in all these other bodies we've had. So that famous phrase, been there, done that? Have they made a t-shirt out of that? Maybe we should make a t-shirt out of that, Been there, done it. We've already experienced it, and look where it's gotten us. Another material body for suffering, birth, old age, disease, and death. So this is what Krishna is saying, why those who deride me, mean they don't listen to me, they don't accept my divinity, they're completely frustrated. We don't want to be moga. We want to be amoga, just like we have a devotee here. Amoga lila. Means successful, blissful, everything wonderful, So that's the first verse. And the other one is really quickly is comparing again the ocean. This time it's the human body that's the boat. Nirdeham adyam sulabam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam gurukarnadaram mayanukurle nadabasviteritam puman bhavabdhim natadetsa atmaha. So Nra is a short for Nara, means a human being. Deh is the body. So this human form of life is a boat, a very suitably constructed boat to cross over the ocean of birth and death. Adhyam means endowed with everything you need. And then there's a play on words. He has describing it in two opposite ways. Sulabam, sudurlabam. Sulabam means very easy to attain. Sudurlabam means very difficult to attain. Well, what's that? Is Krishna just speaking in riddles? Because Krishna speaks this verse. No. You have to understand. Sulabam means you automatically get it. Every soul eventually comes to a human body. Because when you get down in the lower species, you can't sin. There's no more sin because you don't have any intelligence. So you're automatically working off your sins that you committed in the human form of life. And gradually you come up again to the human form. So in that sense it's sulabam. But it's sudurlabam, it means rare. It's very rare. What are there now? 8 billion of us on this planet, they calculated recently. Compared to the number of mosquitoes, it's pretty infinitesimal. But they're as much souls as we are. So we're way in the minority. It's very rare. Human form of life is extremely rare. And the human form of life for a human being to inquire into this, you're all extremely rare souls. There's 4 million people around here in the greater San Diego County? Of course, there's some online too. There's those tens of thousands. No, it's just, a handful online also. So the fortunate few are even asking these questions, what to speak of seriously taking it. So here it says, Sulabam plavam sukalpam, very nicely constructed boat, this human body. And now, but you need a captain of the boat. It's a sailboat actually. And so that's the guru. That's the realized soul who can lead us. Srila Prabhupada's giving us association here. It's someone who's living the teachings and who's willing to teach. This is called the acharya. So that's the guru, the captain. But you need favorable winds. It's not it's not a cruise ship. It's one of these big sailboats. And where are those winds coming from? Krishna says, Mayanukulyena nabhasviteratam. The Basviteratam is favorable winds. Krishna says, it's coming from me in the form of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita. This is the wind pushing the boat. So then he said, Mayanukulyena nabhasviteratam puman bhavabdim nataret sa atmaha. The human being who does not cross over this ocean with all this facility is committing spiritual suicide. You never die, but it's called atmaha, means you're postponing, your deliverance for who knows how long. So that means we should jump on it. We should take advantage of every moment we have in its human form of life for practicing Krishna consciousness and striving to eliminate all the obstacles. So, that's the introduction to our verse, and it goes on. By contrast, see, the whole thing is contrast. Mahatmanas tamam parta. Those who are not the mudhas, who reject me and deride me, they are the Mahatmas, text 13. Very nice. Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. So one is under the Mohini Ashrita, the bewildering material energy. Those are the fools and rascals. But those who take shelter of the divine, daivim, it's the same word, daivim prakatam ashrita, they're the great souls. And what do? Bhajantina manaso. They worship me without any deviation. Just like we have our chanting period, and we have sadhana in the Krishna consciousness. So it extends to the whole life. There's never a moment when they're not actually worshiping Krishna, remembering Him, working for Him, chanting His glories in so many ways. This is the great soul like Srila Prabhupada. Ananya manaso, not deviating mind at all. Gyatva bhutaram, they understand that I'm the origin of everything and that I'm inexhaustible. And how do they worship? Satatam kirtiyanto mam. This is the kirtan, sankirtan. Always chanting my glories. Striving, this came up in that other verse, yatantascha dridavata, with firm determination. Why do we need such determination? Because we're so conditioned. We're so habituated to living on the material plane, to being absorbed in material affairs, trying to enjoy this, try to avoid this unhappiness. And we all are very familiar with what material life is, without a tinge of, maybe a little lip service to God, every so often. But you're not striving to remember Him at every moment and act in relation to Him. So that's why we need dridavata. There has to be some determination to overcome the conditioning. But Krishna is willing to help us. He sends His representatives, He speaks His book, He provides wonderful devotees like Srila Prabhupada to have this movement where we can have a temple to meet. We have all this facility, and we can take advantage of it, but we still have to be determined. And they're bowing down to me, recognizing my namasyantas tamam bhaktya, with love and devotion. In this way, nitya yukta upasate. They're always linked to me in devotion. So then we come across the verses we studied in the last couple of days. Last time, jnana yajna chapyanye. So then he's saying, besides the pure bhaktas, there are others who aren't fools and rascals completely, but they have a different view of how to strive. Jnana yajna. Others who engage in sacrifice by cultivating of knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. So these are other ways of contemplating the Lord, just like the Vishvatomakam. In the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our main text, encyclopedic text, we study in conjunction with this Bhagavad Gita. There's some instruction there on the first step in God realization. And it talks about the universal form. Typically, it'll say when you see the sun and the moon, don't just think of the sun and the moon. These are the eyes of the universal form. The mountains, we have mountains. You go a little west from here, or east from here, and you'll see the mountain range. You think those are the bones of the universal form, and the ocean and the rivers are the veins, like this. In this way, you don't just see the world, neutrally like that, but you see it as part of it's like the external body of God. And in this way, what to speak of the ocean, this is a wonderful expression of the power of God. And so that's one way of beginning one's God consciousness. You can't have a personal, intimate relationship with the universal form, but it can be a first step, meaning that you're humbled by the great power and majesty of the Lord, of God, and you want to serve. You want to engage in worship and service, and that's the very important first step. But Krishna says, behind all of that, I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the offering, the herb. You notice how many I's there were in that verse that we chanted? It looks like 8 of them or so. So the idea is that okay, that's a good first step, but you should understand that really behind all of that, I am the personal God. I am behind all of this personally, because just in terms of the material energy, everything we experience is coming through our intelligence, our mind, the body, which is made up of what? Well, solid matter and liquids and all of these things: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego. These are the building blocks that make up everything in this world. And Krishna says, yes, and it's all my energy. And even those souls who are not part of the material energy, but they're the para prakriti, that's us, we're also emanations from Krishna. So where is there not Krishna? Everything is Krishna, you see. So that's what he's saying here, that even if you do take these other forms, you're still ultimately worshiping me. So any questions on any of these points? I just thought I'd summarize. Yes?
At the end it said that he performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. What does that mean?
Okay, well let me read from the beginning. It said, okay. Or in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. It means that, we don't know. Generally, no one remembers. Does anyone here remember their previous life or lives? I don't. So we don't know what we've been through. But what Krishna is saying here is that if you're performing devotional service, it should be understood that you in previous lives you've come through all of this, and you have a background where you're fortunate to come now just to the pure sense of serving Krishna personally. There's a wonderful verse about the holy name. You probably know this one. Aho bata shapachoto ghariya nyajighagle vartate namatubhyam te pustapaste juhavusasnaraya brahmanuchu nama gunantiyete. Now this verse was uttered by the mother of Lord Kapila Dev, Devahuti, who was his student. He's Krishna, an incarnation of Krishna, and he's teaching her. And she's glorifying his holy name, the holy name. How wonderful it is. Aho, but shopacho, aho is means, oh, how wonderful. Shopacha toguri, even those who are like dog eaters, which is the lowest in the Vedic culture. If they're chanting the holy name, if the name is somehow just dancing on their tongue, well, shopachoto gariyan, how glorious, yat jigvagre, on the tip of the tongue. Vartate namatubhyam. They must have performed all kinds of austerities in previous life and studied the Vedas and performed all the sacrifices and things like that. So in other words, the point is that we don't know our background, but it's clear that, as I mentioned, how rare it is for someone to be interested in this, or to speak of practicing seriously. So we performed all of these kind of things, gone through the speculation, jnana, yajna, some of the other things he mentioned, yajna, ekat vena, seeing God as one, as everything is one, ekat vena, pritak veda, or that God is everything, not that in the universal form, that anything you worship, be worshiping God. There's a lot of confusion out there. But we've been through that. In other words, he's saying that Prabhupada says, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service to Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices. In other words, we don't generally get attracted to that. Yeah, I did Krishna consciousness for a while, but then, I don't know, now I'm going back to be a Mayavadi. That's more attractive. Generally, you find if someone comes with impersonation, becomes a devotee, they don't go back. The reason they give up the impersonal because it's too dry. Can you imagine? I want to get, really my motive is, I want to be free of birth, old age, disease, and death. That's my main motive. And to that end, I'm out of here. I'm leaving San Diego. I'm going up to the mountains. No offense. And I'm going to Himalayas. No, I don't want to be distracted. I want to get, it's I. It's called mukti kama. It's lust, it's strong desire for your own pleasure of being free from birth, old age, disease, and death. You see? That's not bhakti. That's a finer, type of selfishness, and is condemned by Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers. So we've been there. We've done that. We couldn't do it. Nobody can do it. Even if you're able to get above all the material energy and you rise up to the Brahman platform, and I compared it, some of you who knew, that to sensory deprivation, right? It's perfectly controlled temperature, right? You just lie back there and everything is peaceful. But how long can you stay in there? After a while, I got stuff to do. I got to get out of here. Right? So it's a verse like that described that even the Brahmavadis who, by severe austerities, so can you imagine trying to transcend this world, becoming detached from this world without the holy name, without prasadam, without association, without the deities, without anything, just your own will, meditating and speculating and separating. Imagine how hard that is. So the idea is that we may have been through all those things, but now if we come to Krishna consciousness, we can see that none of that is really going to work. You cannot remain detached from matter and attached to nothing. You have to be attached to Krishna, the natural attachment. We should increase that attachment as much as possible.
Prabhu, one more thing.
Okay.
It could also mean that if you're taking the name of Krishna, basically performing indirectly all the yagyas or havans or fire sacrifices. Because if you see, he's talking a lot about butter and fire and offerings in the Sanskrit.
Yeah. That's what he's saying. Yeah.
So it could also be considered in the present tense that if you are taking the name of Krishna, you are basically performing all those sacrifices which are written in Vedas.
Well, I think what the idea is that whatever benefit you're going to get from them, it's all contained in chanting the holy name. You don't need to worry about that. If you're sincerely practicing devotional service, you don't say, "Oh, I'm missing out on this sacrifice, that sacrifice. What about this?" No, everything is complete. That's why there's this verse: Purnam Shuddham Nityamukta Binatvan Namanamino Nama Chintamani Krishnas. The holy name of Krishna is a Chintamani gem. Means that Chintamani gem turns things to gold. It's a philosopher's stone, probably called a touchstone. And once you start, so Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha means that all of the different rasas, the different relationships with Krishna, whatever it happens to be your natural relationship, you can realize it by chanting the holy name. It's a cleansing process. Chaitodarpana marjanam. So, Chaitanya Purna Shuddhone. Purna means complete. It's a complete process of yoga. You don't have to worry, yeah, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but what about this other yoga? I have to go do this, I have to go do some yajnas. No, it's already taken care of. Whatever benefit you're going to get from the other processes that are within the the realm of bhakti, you'll get by just practicing straight bhakti.
That's the last verse of chapter 8.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, he says the same thing there. Yeah. All right, let's go on because we want to do a few more. So 17. Pitaham asya jagato Mata data pitamaha Vedyam pavitram omkara Riksama yajarevacha. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajurvedas. Purport. The entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as our father, mother, grandfather, creator, etc. But actually they are parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father, mother, etc. are nothing but Krishna. In this verse, the word Data means creator. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother and grandfather, etc. are also Krishna. I think creator here may refer to Brahma. Actually, any living entity being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. All the Vedas, therefore, aim only toward Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step toward understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify our constitutional position is especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and as such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om, called pranava, is a transcendental sound vibration and is also Krishna. And because in all the hymns of the four Vedas, Sama, Yaja, Riga, and Atharva, the pranava or Omkar is very prominent, and this has been fixed. Therefore, those Vedas, Sama, Yaja, Riga, are also understood to be Krishna. I'll explain it later to you privately if you want to understand. So, it's the same theme that he's carrying forward. Everything you experience can be traced back to Krishna. We ourselves are this famously Angsha of Krishna. Mamai Vangsho Jivaloki in the 15th chapter, he says. And he also says there, which comes up in the purport, that of all the Vedas I am to be known. Vedaischa sarva ahameva Vedya. In other words, you may study. I remember before I ever heard of Krishna consciousness, I was searching here and there. I was doing some yoga. I hadn't been to the temple yet. And I remember I forget where it was, some library, maybe a college library. And there were all of these books bound in green, and there were different Vedas. There was a translation. There were English translations of the Vedas, the Puranas. There was all of these, and I had no idea. Which one should I read? What should I open one up? It was very interesting. I don't know what that's about. In other words, you need that guide. Otherwise, it's very confusing. That's the theme at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva had written all the Vedas. He'd written all the other Puranas. He'd written the Mahabharata, but he was dissatisfied. Now, why would he be dissatisfied? He couldn't figure it out at first. So Narada Muni came and explained to him, Nayad vachas chitta badang hare yasho jagat pravitam. He chastised his disciple. He says, basically he said, you haven't sufficiently glorified Krishna and his devotees and the devotional service. Yes, you've mentioned it, you've dealt with it in some detail. You have the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, but there's so much in the Mahabharata that's not directly related to Krishna consciousness. I worked on it. And it's invaluable in and of itself, but you need to write a book that's wholly and solely about bhakti, about Krishna's devotees, and the whole process. And that turns out to be the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the best and most authorized commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. It's right in the book. Vedanta Sutra comprises, in essence, these codes which are mysterious unless you have commentary, the essence of all the Vedic wisdom. But it requires explanation, and the explanation, a commentary that gives the final word, is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the idea, is that yes, everything is related to Krishna. All the Rig, Sama, Yajurveda. Ultimately, I am also those, because the ultimate goal of all of them is me. But unless you get a guide who can keep you on the track and see how everything relates to me, and how you can also engage all your facilities in the service, then you're going to remain bewildered by all of this. These other literatures and things like that. So we're very fortunate to have this opportunity. Okay, let's see. Let's do one more. Gater Bata Prabhu Sakshi Nivasak Sharanam Surit Prabhavak Pralayak Stanam Nidanam Bijamabhyam I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. Purport. Gati means the destination where we want to go, but the ultimate goal is Krishna, although people do not know it. One who does not know Krishna is misled, and his so-called progressive march is either partial or hallucinatory. There are many who make as their destination different demigods, and by rigid performance of the strict respective methods, they reach different planets, such as Chandraloka, Suryaloka, Indraloka, Maharloka, etc. But all such lokas or planets, being creations of Krishna, are simultaneously Krishna and not Krishna. Such planets, being manifestations of Krishna's energy, are also Krishna, but actually they serve only as a step forward for realization of Krishna. To approach the different energies of Krishna is to approach Krishna indirectly. One should directly approach Krishna, for that will save time and energy. For example, if there is a possibility of going to the top of a building by the help of an elevator, why should one go by the staircase, step by step? Everything is resting on Krishna's energy, therefore without Krishna's shelter, nothing can exist. Krishna is the supreme ruler because everything belongs to him and everything exists on his energy. Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, is the supreme witness. The residences, the countries or planets on which we live are also Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate goal of shelter, and therefore one should take shelter of Krishna either for protection or for annihilation of his distress. And whenever we have to take protection, we should know that our protection must be a living force. Krishna is the supreme living entity. And since Krishna is the source of our generation, or the Supreme Father, no one can be a better friend than Krishna, nor can anyone be a better well-wisher. Krishna is the original source of creation and the ultimate rest after annihilation. Krishna is therefore the eternal cause of all causes. Quite a eulogy there. So, in this, the text of this ninth chapter and the purports are all emphasizing the same thing, and that is that if we really want to achieve the goal of life, we should aim for the highest destination that there can be. And how can there be any other destination or higher destination than the one who is pervading everything, who is the creator of everything, and most importantly for us, is our most dear friend. Remember what we read at the end of the 5th chapter? Bhoktaram yaggitapasang sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shanti mrichati. This word shanti is so important. Real peace can come only with the absolute security of being sustained and confident that the supreme power in the world is on our side and is protecting us and is our best friend. This word surit, Prabhupada would sign his letters, your ever well-wisher. And he said, this is what it means to be surit, is that you have a friend who's always looking out for your best interests. We all have, intimate friends in this world and life, But really, isn't there kind of a limit to how much they can be? First, there's a time limit. But then, someone, your best friend comes to stay with you, and he said, oh yeah, come on, stay, you can sleep on the couch, But after, 1 week, 2 weeks, what's happened? Says, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I lost my job and my friend left me, I really don't have any place to stay. You mind if I stay another month? Yeah, well, it's a certain limit. In other words, there's always a limit to material friendship. But Krishna is always looking out for us. Life after life, we've been through all of these different bodies. He's always there as the super soul. He's always trying to give us good advice. He's always guiding us. And we're always rebelling, and, he follows us to the next body, So the super soul, he's come out. Krishna is the original super soul, and he's instructing us through the Bhagavad Gita because we can't hear him from within the heart. It's the same instruction. Give up this separate, this idea of independence, that you're an independent power, an enjoyer and controller. That's a great illusion. That's the source of all your problems. That keeps you separate from me. You can't feel my protection, and you don't have any real goal, and you're not happy. Sometimes the unhappiness could be just devastating. You hear people. I mean, just this COVID thing. There's millions of people who are now suffering long COVID. They went through COVID. Okay, I got better. Now I'm out of the hospital. But now what is this? I get the fever, and I get this, and chronic disease. It's such a horrible, thing. And your life could become a nightmare. You'd rather be dead, but that's not a solution. Suicide is not a solution, So Krishna is explaining that, he's all of these things. Gatir Bhartu Prabhu Sakshi, I'm the goal, I'm the sustainer, I'm the Lord, the witness, and the sharanam, the ultimate shelter. So if we accept it and we try to live our lives according to that and serve Krishna, then we'll feel that friendship and that shelter and all of these things that he's talking about. Well, we're a little late. I'll do a real short poem. You know this verse. Maduram maduram babarasya vibho maduram maduram vadanam maduram madugandhi madhusmitameta-daho maduram 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 maduram. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. That was Bilvamangal Thakur in the Krishna Karnamrita. Okay, we'll be able to see the Lord in a very short time. I have a kirtan. Thank you for listening, locally and remotely. Hare Krishna. And we'll begin, or continue tomorrow with text 20, is it? No, text 19. Text 19. Hare Krishna.